Greetings, salutations to Safe to Serve International and first-time viewers. Welcome to this midday power surge. This is your spiritual oasis on this pilgrim journey. I'm your host, Andrew Henriquez, on this Monday, January 22nd. Welcome one, welcome all to this midday power surge. We're streaming live, of course, here on YouTube, on our platforms such as Facebook, Rumble, and also on X. You know what to do as you're being blessed. Share, subscribe, follow, etc. Let's get right into this subject matter. This lesson is going to be covering one of the principles of the everlasting gospel. In Revelation chapter 14 and verse number 6, the Bible speaks of the everlasting gospel. In verse number 8, the Bible mentions, Babylon is fallen, that great city. Which city is this? Could this be the Vatican? We'll get to that. And in Revelation 18, there's a repetition of the everlasting gospel. In verse 1 through verse 4, and the focus is to call people out from Babylon. And that's one of my objectives today, to call people from Babylon. But first they must understand who Babylon is. And next they must understand Babylon's diabolical agenda to destroy their freedoms, control, oppress, and enslave the masses. Then they will come out from false worship, and unite with God's people in true worship. When you look at the fall of Babylon, before Babylon falls, Babylon must first rise. The higher they rise, the harder they fall. When you look at Babylon in the Bible, when she is introduced in Scripture, in chapter 1 of Daniel, 2, 3, all the way through Daniel 6, Babylon represents a system of the union of church and state. Babylon, one world government. Babylon, one world religion. Babylon, enslaving the masses. Babylon, controlling the economy. Babylon, persecuting the people, throwing people in a fiery furnace, in a lion's den. Babylon. So who is modern day Babylon? Babylon is linked to the merchants. Chapter 18 of Revelation and verse 2 and verse 3. Remember, before Babylon falls, Babylon must rise. One more time. Because the higher they rise and climb, the harder they are going to fall. Here's one of the merchants of Babylon that will lead us into our subject matter. Here is Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, Babylon.
Let's also be clear. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us.
Babylon, just as the Pope of Rome says, prepare the future. Babylon, popery, along with the merchants. Well, the annual World Economic Forum meeting between January 15th and January 19th is now in the books. But who was present at the World Economic Forum? Have you ever heard of an organization by the name of the Club of Rome? There it is. They were present at this recent meeting, and the Club of Rome launched a book, a document with its diabolical agenda. And what is that agenda? They stated, after the Cold War ended, that they needed to manufacture more crises to justify controlling the population, to justify enslaving the people, to justify the promotion of the new world order. Here's clip one. This is Epoch Times interviewing Alex Newman. Clip 1.
Government. In fact, you see a very clear break when the Club of Rome met in 1991 as the Soviet state and the Eastern European communist states were collapsing. The Club of Rome, very, very powerful elitists. Obviously, Mikhail Gorbachev was there. You had many prominent Americans, people like Al Gore. They got together and they came up with this incredible document where they actually said we need a new justification for this all-powerful state.
Have you ever heard the colloquial saying, if you want to hide things from a particular sect, group of people, put it in a book. People just won't read. In the second clip, it mentioned the men who comprise the Club of Rome came up with this slogan: we need a common enemy. Common enemy? To unite the world, to bring about the new world order. And that document was printed in 1991. Hence the title. Our common enemy was exposed in 1991. But listen now. In the document, what did they list as our common enemy? Number 1, pollution. Manufacture more pollution. And even the so-called threat of pollution, global warming. They mention water shortages. Wait a minute. Are we not seeing all these things on the media? Number 4, manufacture more famine and other crises. Clip 2.
So the new excuse is going to be because the environment is going to be harmed and because climate is going to hurt us.
Wait, what? I could not believe what I just heard. Did world leaders really lay out this globalist plan in plain English in a physical book way back in 1991? I went on Amazon, and there it was. The First Global Revolution, which states, and I quote, "In searching for a common enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. And therefore, the real enemy is humanity itself."
So much I want to say right now, but I'm going to forego for now and cover those points as we close this presentation. That tagline stated, humanity is the problem. By the way, you know what I did? I went to search for the document myself. There it is, friends. That's it. The First Global Revolution, a report by the Council of the Club of Rome. Look at the right of your screen. The bottom, the words in that red box. It's right there. The common enemy of humanity is man. Now, surely I won't repeat everything the clip just said. It's in the paragraph right there. As a matter of fact, I found the PDF of the book. The whole book, unabridged, in a PDF. It's right there. The last sentence in the red box. The real enemy then is humanity itself. Gentlemen and ladies, brothers and sisters, it's a fulfillment of Matthew 24. And later on, I'm going to come back to this. But let me not insert too much because I need to connect the fact the Club of Rome, its agenda is connected to popery, Jesuitism. Have you ever heard the term, all roads lead to Rome? Who is also promoting this idea and sentiment that climate change is man-made? You see that now, friends? The Pope of Rome, man-made, blaming man, the Pope of Rome. And since the Pope says, blame man for climate change, then what is the solution? The chief solution. The Pope says, we need ecological conversion. What? In the next 7 years. Ecological conversion, 2030. Don't forget that. And what is the Pope's ecological conversion? It is resting on the Pope's so-called Sabbath, which is Sunday. No buy, no sell. In Laudato Si, Sunday rest, Sunday worship by law to combat calamities, to care for the poor. and to combat calamities, to care for nature. And the Pope is saying the world needs to change and modify their lifestyle practices to save the planet. It's right there. And the Pope is chastising the West. Why so? Why America? Because the mark of the beast begins in the United States of America. It's right there. Blame America. Blame the West for climate change. Now, we're told in Great Controversy, page 590, that God's people are going to be blamed for the calamities because God's people refuse to accept Sunday worship, Sunday rest by law, and to denounce and to renounce God's seventh-day Sabbath. That day is coming. That means the movement to combat climate change is actually a bait and switch. It's a tool to control, oppress, and enslave the masses. Don't take it from me alone. Next clip. Same interview. Listen.
The motivations of those who are pushing this agenda, many of them tend to emulate countries like China, which have abysmal environmental records. This is a country that has massive pollution problems. They don't seem to care about rivers and lakes and streams. There's all sorts of toxins pouring into them. In actuality, I would say their envy of China is more to do with their control over their population and control over politics than it has to do with the environment. In looking at this, it looks like the environment's a tool to achieve power more than it is an end goal of itself to actually protect nature.
Okay, friends, let me roll on. It is a bait and switch. Now, this is the European Union President, Ursula von der Leyen. She actually spoke recently, and she was talking about how to balance three things. What three things? She mentioned population growth, the economy, and she mentioned climate. How do we balance all these three? And she quoted the words from the Club of Rome. What words came from the Club of Rome's agenda? To preserve the planet, we need population reduction. What? Yeah. We need degrowth. We need to stop population growth to preserve the planet. They are no longer speaking in parables and symbolic languages. They are forthright and succinct with their wording. I wonder why the majority of the people are asleep. They are in a gaze, distracted. Here it is. EU president, watch this. Remember, it's all about what? Listen.
The motivations of...
Hold on. What's going on? Here she is. Listen.
Indeed, if we look back, a little over 50 years ago, the Club of Rome and a group of MIT researchers published the Limits of Growth report. It mapped the interaction between population growth, the economy, and the environment. And it came 50 years ago to a drastic conclusion. Stop economic and population growth, or else our planet will not cope.
Did you hear that? Stop economic growth and population growth, or else the planet is not going to survive. Does that sound like the sentiments of Mr. Floodgates in that TED Talk several years ago? To combat climate change, to lower carbon emission, that one of these things have to come near down to zero. And he pointed to the population. And that's why we are being told it's all about climate change, because fear sells. Give that to me.
We're going to start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and so our next thing is going to be climate change awareness.
Climate crisis, climate change.
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 Enough of that. All right, friends. In order to preserve the planet, we need to stop population growth. Wait a minute. You mean abortion? How are they going to do this? This is a reasonable question. You mean through pricks and jabs? How are they going to do this? Poisoning the air? How are they going to do this? We're told in the book Great Controversy, page 589 and page 590, the chapter entitled Impending Conflict. They will impart to the air a deadly taint, and thousands will perish by the pestilence. They will bring disease and disaster until populous cities are reduced to ruin and desolation. How are they going to stop population growth? You mean poisoning the water supply? Poisoning the food? You mean lab manufactured food? Listen, you can no longer grow your own food because your process is creating climate havoc. So come and get our food from our laboratories. How are they going to stop population growth? I mean, the list is endless. And now she went on to say, this is the agenda. This is the mission and spirit of the European Union Green Deal.
Indeed, if we look back a little,
Clip 2, here it is.
this is the mission that drives us today, and this is the spirit of the European Green Deal.
It's the mission and spirit of the EU Green Deal. Stop population growth. Let's hear now, in this interview, Joe Rogan interviewing Elon Musk. Elon Musk stated the climate change movement is a death cult. Extinctionist movement. To preserve planet, stop population growth, Elon Musk says we can 10x the population and the planet can still survive. Clip 1. Listen.
Few days. I'm in favor of. I'm pro-environment, but the in the limit, if you take environmentalism to an extreme, you start to view humanity as a plague on the surface of the earth, like a mold or something.
Right.
But this is actually false. The Earth could take probably 10 times the current civilization. The population could be, you could 10x the population without destroying the rainforest. So the environmental movement, and I'm an environmentalist, has gone too far. They've gone way too far. If you start thinking that humans are bad, then the natural conclusion is humans should die out. Now,
mercy. Let's not stop. Clip 2. Rolled right into it. Clip 2.
I mean, I don't want to be melodramatic, but it's almost like a death cult.
It's a death cult. No, that is exactly right. It's essentially the extinctionists. Like, it's in the limit. It is that they're propagating the extinction of humanity and civilization. And there's some people who are like most of the time it's implicit. They don't but sometimes it's explicit. Like there was a guy on the front page of the New York Times who literally has the thing called the Extinctionist movement, and he was quoted on the front page of the New York Times as saying, "There are 8 billion people in the world, but it would be better if there were none."
Mercy.
And I'm like, well, buddy, you can start with yourself.
Yeah.
So now in clip 3, they will post the actual New York Times article. Once I show this, I'm going to ask those of you who are live a question. Clip 3. Listen, watch this.
Does he have friends? That's what always fascinates me.
Well,
here he is.
That guy.
He looks like he's not long for this earth.
I mean, he's not
Voluntary
young.
Human Extinction Movement. That's hilarious. I'd like to party with that dude.
All right.
I would just like to
That's
Here's the question. Is that explicit or implicit? Of course, it's explicit. 8 billion people in the world. It would be better that there's none to preserve the climate than if there's none, who's going to enjoy the climate and the planet. That's explicit. Question now. Two I have for you. Question one. The words from Mr. Floodgates, was that implicit or explicit? Explicit. You answer. Or the words from the EU president, Ursula von der Leyen, quoting the Club of Rome, to preserve the planet, we must stop population growth. What is that? Explicit or implicit version of depopulation, a death cult, an extinctionist movement. Which is it? Give it to me in the chat right there, friends. All right. So now, who is the head of this death cult? Who it is? Look at this, my friends. Give that to me. Headline, who is saying that climate change is man-made? The Pope of Rome, that Jesuit, that's the head of the serpent, the snake. It's right there, friends. This is the head of that movement. Just like Jezebel in 1 Kings 18 and 2 Kings 9. Jezebel slew the prophets of God. And what was happening in the time of Jezebel and Ahab? There was drought, quote unquote, climate change. And Jezebel, working through Ahab, slew God's people and attempted to kill Elijah. And the Bible says in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 and verse 6, as it was in the days of Elijah, so it is going to be just before the second coming of Christ. Get back to this. Jezebel is called a harlot with witchcraft. So who today is called a harlot in the Bible? It's Babylon, the mother of harlots. Revelation 17, verse 3 through verse 6. And Babylon is drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs. And chapter 18 of Revelation, verse 6, verse 21, and verse 24, Babylon is guilty of violence in the earth, the blood of all those who have been slain. Babylon. You think it's far-fetched? Here's the Pope confessing, so-called apology. They're guilty of murdering Christians, Sabbath keepers, Jews, who went against their so-called dogmas and doctrines and civil policies. It's right there. Babylon today. Don't miss it, my friends. So Babylon is fallen. Fallen. Is she now rising? Yes. And who is Babylon? The Pope says the Roman Catholic Church is the mother of all denominations. Mother of harlots. Harlots, churches. False churches. Babylon. That's it right there. The mother church. And remember, my friend, have you ever heard this other colloquial saying? Where you see smoke, there's what? Fire. As we would say, you will never see smoke without fire. Look at this right here, friends. This is the Pope. Pope Francis. His encyclical Laudato Si is promoting the words of the Club of Rome. Yes. Stop population growth. By the way, look at the right column. Look in the paragraph. Do you see the year 1968? It's the Club of Rome's document. Skip on down to the red words. It is time to, quote, accept decreased growth. What? Decreased growth in some parts of the world. Pope Francis advises in order to provide resources for other places to experience healthy growth. Laudato Si, the Club of Rome. Stop economic growth, stop population growth. Here it is again. In this segment, I'm going to bring you now to Matthew 24. You will see for yourselves. Prophecy is being fulfilled. Get ready. Here is the EU president. Again, to preserve the planet, we need to stop population growth and economic growth. It's the Pope's sentiment.
Indeed, if we look back, a little over 50 years ago, the Club of Rome and a group of MIT researchers published the Limits of Growth report. It mapped the interaction between population growth, the economy, and the environment. And it came 50 years ago to a drastic conclusion. Stop economic and population growth, or else our planet will not cope.
I mean, who voted her into power? Where are the constituents? Where are the interviews? Where are the letters of inquiry? What do you mean by this? How are we going to do this? How? Friends, this is Matthew 24. In verse number 3, the question was asked of Christ, what will be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? The first words from Christ in response were, verse 4, let no man deceive you. Deceive you on what? What would be the issues that are going to be deceptive in the last days? Are you ready now? Verse number 7. Wars, famines, pestilences, earthquakes in diverse places, pandemic worldwide, so-called climate change. We are here. The Club of Rome. They needed another boogeyman. The boogeyman is going to get you. So they can bring forth the new world order, control and enslave the masses. And what were the items again? Pollution, climate change, water shortages, famines, etc., and other crises. It's Matthew 24. Listen to me attentively now. Should we not begin to implement the 5 keys of survival? Since they told us all the way back in 1991, expect famines. We just saw a type of famine in the pandemic, empty shelves. We saw supply chain crises, ships at sea, bottlenecked, could not bring the goods to port. It's time to implement the 5 keys of survival. They spoke about water shortages. Should we not find ourselves in the country, in rural districts, and have an independent water source? Not coming from the county's pipeline? When there's a cyber attack, EMP strike, a power outage, for days, weeks, and months, the power grid shuts down. There's no water coming through your pipes. It takes electricity to run the water plant, the city and county water. And if you have a well, that well will also need electricity. So what do we need then? Alternative power source. Wake up. The 5 keys of survival. Let me stop right there. Then it mentioned in verse 8 in Matthew 24. These are the beginning of sorrows. Then verse 9 says, then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. Death cult? Why would they kill us? And you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Allow me to make it plain. Why would they kill us? The context says there are going to be policies to combat wars, famines, pestilences, climate change, earthquakes in diverse places. And God's people who don't go along with their global agenda are going to be sought out to be killed. You see what's coming, friends? For Christ's name's sake. And the name is God's character. The name, God's 10 commandments, character, the 7th-day Sabbath, not Sunday rest and Sunday worship by law. On yesterday, we posted a video montage of various clips. And the essence of that video is this: a storm is coming. Are we ready?
Storm clouds gathering together is coming.
We see storm clouds gathering.
There are already storm clouds gathering.
You know a storm is coming.
We get closer and closer to the eye of this storm.
Eye of the storm.
Eye of the storm.
Unlike anything you've ever seen.
You haven't seen anything yet.
Brace yourself.
Brace yourself, America.
There's no longer a gathering storm.
A storm is coming.
The storm is here.
A storm is coming, and we're told what the storm is going to look like. The storm is the mark of the beast crisis with persecution for God's people. That storm is the national Sunday law. It's the Sunday movement, the climate change movement, the combating famine, pestilences. It's the Sunday movement, the coming storm, relentless in its fury. And God's angels are holding back the winds. That you and I can get prepared and warn the world. The 5 keys of survival. A storm is coming, relentless in its fury. Are we prepared to meet it? We need not say the perils of the last days are soon to come upon us. Why? Already they have come. We need now the sword of the Lord to cut to the very soul and marrow of fleshly lusts, appetites, and passions. Are we one with Christ? Are our feet on the rock of ages? A storm is coming. Do you know what the 5 keys of survival are? And those of us who aren't prepared for this coming storm, we're going to be swept away. A storm is coming. Conversion, first key. Country living, second key. Having food, water, resources on your property. Number 4, being independent of the government, industry, job, business, evangelism. Number 5, the bartering system, assisting those who are less fortunate. The 3rd key, resources, could also include gas masks and other practical things for what is coming. My friends, I leave it there until we return on tomorrow for Midday Power Surge at 12 noon. A storm is coming. Let these words stain your minds.
Storm clouds gathering together is coming.
We see storm clouds gathering.
There are already storm clouds gathering.
You know a storm is coming.
We get closer and closer to the eye of this storm.
Eye of the storm. Eye of the storm.
Unlike anything you've ever seen.
You haven't seen anything yet.
Brace yourself.
Brace yourself, America.
There's no longer a gathering storm.
A storm is coming.
The storm is here.